What's up, bikers? Welcome to episode 152 of the B1KER Bar Podcast live stream. Nailed the intro today. I feel like I've been doing this for a while. Apparently, it has been 152 episodes. Thank you all that are here revisiting. Thank you to you guys that are coming for your first time. Really means a lot. I just swung by the Apple Podcast to look at the reviews, and a couple of guys like Ubersai and Superflog or Flug. I don't know. You can tell me how he pronounces it, but great reviews over there. Every mountain biker should be listening. A peek behind the mountain bike curtain. I really appreciate that. Those of you guys that want to help get the word out about this podcast, do me a favor, shoot over there, write a 5-star review. It really makes a difference on how the podcast gets shared out there and how people can find it. So let's make this the number one MTB podcast. I mean, I honestly enjoy reading the reviews, and so many people on there are saying that this is their favorite. So it really keeps the stoke level high. Those of you that want to really like put in the extra effort and help me out, this is a grassroots kind of thing that I'm doing here. I'm not getting paid by a bunch of bike companies or anything like that. It's really just the supporters on Patreon. So there's people over there throwing $1 at me, kind of like you get your bartender to pour you a beer, you give them an extra $1. Or there's some people that are in the little $5 tier. You get some sticker packs. And honestly, right now I'm throwing in a little pretty rad little stainless steel biker mountain or biker what the hell am I trying to say? Biker bottle opener. That's what it is. Like size of a credit card. Super cool looking. Anyways, I really appreciate the support over there on Patreon. It means a lot. And it's honestly the guys over there that or guys and gals that are helping contribute to that really keep this thing going. There's always some kind of weird expense coming up, and it's cool to see some people that really want to help support. So I really appreciate everybody over there. You guys are the number one supporters of this show, and actually both channels. So if you're not familiar, I also have a POV channel called B1KER, B1KER, obviously. That's on YouTube. I do some pretty fun content. Just did a ride back in Pennsylvania, or a video on a ride back in Pennsylvania, and that was really fun, man. A lot of good reception on that one as well. So if you're into that kind of content, take a look at that as well. Anyways, there's some free stuff out there like this. You can just listen, hit the thumbs up, hit subscribe, or you can swing by Instagram or Facebook, give me a follow. Those things are all free. And no matter what, man, I really appreciate everybody being here. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and pull Chris from NOBL, the brand manager. How's it going, man?
Nailed it. You nailed it, man. Yeah, no, it's going really, really well. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man, totally, dude. I'm really stoked that I ran into you at Sea Otter, and we were just chatting, and next thing you know, here we are. We're on the show.
Yeah, for sure. That was that your? So you've obviously been down to Sea Otter quite a few times, I imagine, right?
Yeah, a handful of years now. It's been interesting to see it like come up and go down, and you know the whole pandemic thing kind of threw a monkey wrench in it. But was that your first time?
Yeah, so my background actually is in the music industry. So I've been to a number of different types of festivals, but that was my first like big bike festival. When I started with the company, it was in the middle of COVID. So it just felt really insulated. Like obviously I was sending emails, kind of meeting people and like making relationships in the industry. But really, you know, last year we opted not to do any shows just because things were just starting back up again. And 2023 is kind of the first year we invested in getting back out there and doing some of these public trade shows. And I was just like blown away. I couldn't believe the scope of the thing, man. Like every time I left the tent, I just get lost and like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, there's grips there. There's like bikes there. It's just absolutely crazy how big it was. It was a real blast being down there.
Yeah, definitely. It's a little overwhelming. I think the first time I went, I mean, it was just like, wow, there is so much to look at. And even I typically go Thursday and Friday just because it's a little easier to talk to like people like you while I'm there. And because the weekend, you know, it just got insane over the weekend. And even in those 2 days, I'll be walking. I'll be like, all right, I'm leaving right now. And I feel like I've talked to everybody I want to talk to. And in the time of walking from one side of the fest to the other, which ends up taking me like 3 hours, I end up talking to like 15 other people. I'm like, holy cow, I didn't even know I wanted to talk to them, or you know what I mean? It was like just really, really fun time.
Yeah, I mean, the scope of it is just immense, and I think the really challenging thing for us as a brand. I mean, we're a relatively small company in the grand scope of things. So for us, it's how do we stand out at this thing? How do we really kind of communicate to the public, our company DNA and what we do here at NOBL? But we had a blast. Like we did, I'm not sure if you saw, but we did like a wheel set giveaway on the Saturday.
Oh,
And
that's
rather than
awesome.
just like do something conventional, we at the start of the day, I threw up on Instagram, whoever comes by the tent with the shortest jean shorts, we're going to give a wheel set away to, like a full carbon wheel set. And like, it was a riot, man. Like we had guys all day coming by the tent with these, like, and the first ones were like, regular kind of like, Daisy Duke style shorts.
Right.
And then by the end of the day, we had this rule where you were allowed one recut, but you couldn't see the sizes that had come by already. And by the end of the day, man, this guy cut his jean shorts. It was like literally like this. Like it was like a jean thong. So if you go onto our Instagram, you'll be able to see a picture of me. His name was Spencer, and brand new wheel set, and he walked around the festival with a little jean thong on for Saturday. So that was a win in my books.
Oh, that's awesome, man. That sounds like a really good time.
Yeah.
It's cool when you come up with something like that that's a little bit better than like and follow and subscribe to these 3 places, and we'll randomly pick somebody out of this list. That's really cool.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I'm sure you you probably run into that all the time with what you're doing too, right? How to be creative and think outside the box a little bit too.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's that's the name of the game, right?
Yeah.
I think that it's hard to come up with that stuff too, and I sometimes people are, oh, so and so did that. You can't. It's like, yeah, dude. If you can't copy some other people's things that are successful, then you're doing it wrong. Everybody's gonna have their own spin, so it's okay to do that as well. But that's a great idea. Before we get started, so you said you were in the music industry. What'd you do there?
Yeah, so I kind of got out of high school and I told myself, oh, I'm going to give it 5 years doing this music thing. And, 5 years turned to 6 years, turned to 7. And I always had, just enough success, and I think was kind of progressing enough that it made sense to stay involved with it. And it was definitely my passion growing up. I kind of was, sleeping on floors across the country in kind of harder rock bands when I was younger. And then in 2010, I launched a solo career as a singer-songwriter and released a couple records under my name, just that moniker. And then most recently, I was part of a folk rock trio called Lion Bear Fox. And we were together for 8 years, and were able to tour internationally, Europe and Canada and the States. And it was an absolute blast. Had the time of my life. And, we were all 3, it was 3 singers. We all had big personalities, and it kind of naturally just came to a conclusion. And it was during that time, I had lived in the North Shore in Vancouver for about a decade. And I'd really just kind of started to mountain bike and hike, and that became my new passion. And when the band kind of finished up, I was left with a bit of a void in my life. Like, what's the next step going to be? What am I going to do next? And luckily, when you're running a band, it's actually very similar to running your own small business. You come up, nowadays, back in the day, you'd have a record label. They would do all your publicity, they do all your marketing. They would press the records for you, handle all the sales and all that sort of stuff. But nowadays, any artist in any medium are being asked to do all of their own Instagram, all their own marketing. Music is streaming, so you have this incredible control over what you release and when you release it and how it looks to the public. So it turned out I had all these skills that were actually really transferable to any different types of business, right? And so when the owner moved NOBL Wheels over to the island where I was residing at the time, it was just a really obvious. I saw the listing and I'd fallen in love with mountain biking, and it was just an obvious fit to jump in and just get started. It was challenging and scary, but I'm sure glad I did.
Right on, man. I used to play guitar. My original aspirations in life was to be in the music industry as well, and did a little bit of band stuff, but nothing like what you were saying. And then I was going to school for studio recording, and here I am. Now in IT.
I'm sure you know. Did you get so I ask everyone this, like everyone that was in the industry or played an instrument, I'm sure that you were involved in music long enough, no matter like what level you got to, that you probably have one insane music related story.
Oh man, I would have to sit here and think about exactly what I wanted to come up with and what was like safe for podcasts. So
yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I mean. The fact that you just said that, it proves
yeah,
my point once again, for sure.
yeah. But I think it's there's definitely some parallels between like biking and music, at least for me. And the biggest parallel is just the passion that I have for it, you know. And whenever I like, music was like the thing that I did all the time. And that was like how all my friends were made. All of us played an instrument or sang or did something, you know what I mean? It was like, if we were going to go hiking, it was like, yeah, we're going to go up there, we're going to like jam for a little bit and then go like hike through the woods, or we're going to go crash on this beach, but we're really like, you know, going to go down, drink some beers and make some music, you know? And it's kind of the same thing with biking, where it totally, at least for me and the friend groups that I have, it's all encompassing. And with biking, it's basically that same thing, because you have this fitness level that you're trying to stay after, or this skill set level. And in order to keep it, you got to keep doing it. Right. And the same thing with music. Like, I can pick up my guitar and I can still play some old Nirvana song I used to play all the time, but I'm like one song in and my fingers are hurting and I'm like, kind of like, hey, this is good. And, you know, I'm not hitting whatever, you know, strings right or something like that. Same thing with mountain bikes. You have to stay on it. And the best way to stay on it is like your friend group. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
definitely a big passion though. And that's, you know, one of the things I always told my kids when they were growing up: just do whatever makes you happy and you'll be successful. Like, it doesn't, like, don't worry about money or anything, because it'll happen. Like, just do what makes you happy. And I don't know, it's worked for me so far. So like, so you were saying NOBL was originally up in the BC area or something, or where are they from?
Yeah, so the company was originally formed in the Fraser Valley, in the Chilliwack Abbotsford area. So that's where like Vetter Mountain is, Sumas Mountain. And it was formed in 2012 was when they started up, and then
So
operated there.
just to like clarify for people that aren't very geographically oriented, this is on the
Sure.
kind of west coast of Canada, right? Close to America.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So from Seattle, you'd be looking at like a 3-hour drive north from Seattle. That's where you'd hit Vancouver. You know, Whistler, as a good point of reference, would be like an hour and a half north from Vancouver. So we refer to that region as kind of the sea to sky region. So Vancouver, Squamish, Whistler, Pemberton, that's north of Vancouver. The Fraser Valley is just east of Vancouver. So that's where Abbotsford, Chilliwack is. And there's some incredible riding out there. And so Trevor is the owner of the company. He formed the business in 2012. And at the time, he started manufacturing carbon rims that were really quite a bit wider at that time than what was popular in those years. And so one of the first company taglines was NOBL wide carbon rims, because they were just a lot wider than what was currently available in the market at that time. So there was some significant growth over that time, but really, I think over the last couple of years, you know, like a lot of other bike brands, we saw some really explosive growth. Trevor made the choice to move the business over to the island in 2021, which is when I joined the team. And I think at that time, there's, you know, I think six or seven people, and I think we're now 21 or 22. So it's really grown quite a bit over the last period of time. And unfortunately, it's a real explosive growth, which is not always easy to plan around or build around as a brand. But we've been fortunate in that we've been able to hire some really exceptional people. Company culture is a huge thing here, and we've been able to hire some people that are really passionate about what they do, work really hard, and as a result, we've been able to, I think, really build out some processes that are keeping the brand strong and making sure that we're still shipping out premium product, even though we're busier than ever, which is always something that's been really important to us.
Where do you guys manufacture at?
Yeah, so we build the rims by hand here now so we're in the Comox Valley. So now we're based on Vancouver Island. So to use Whistler as an example again, if you're, just south to Vancouver, we're about an hour and a 40-minute ferry ride over to Vancouver Island. But the island itself is huge. So, I mean, it would probably take you 7-8 hours to drive kind of tip to tip on the island. And we're roughly central. So we're, just steps away from, world-class single track here in Cumberland. Got 5 or 6 different networks in the area. We also have surfing about 2 hours away. The ski hills right here. So it's a good place to be if you like living outside, being outside rather. So everything here is manufactured by hand. The rims themselves are made overseas. We have, I don't want to get too specific, but we have a fairly, I'd say we have some ownership stake in 2 different factories overseas. So we have, I mentioned that because we have very stringent, we're a big part of the manufacturing process and the QC process. And I'm really, really happy with the quality of the rims that we manufacture and bring in for NOBL. And once they arrive here, we basically manufacture the wheels all 100% by hand. Nothing is pre-built. We don't have we don't have 5 wheel sets that we build here. Essentially for us, customers reach out. We ask them, where are you riding? What are you riding? What kind of bike is it? How much travel? What do you want it to feel like? And then from that conversation, we then custom build that person a wheel set using our catalog of rims. So, if that means, we're using, say we're going to use a TR37, which is like our all mountain enduro rim with a Chris King hub and, Sapim D-Light spokes. And everything's fully custom. So that means nipple colors are all different. Hub colors are all different. We print and manufacture our own vinyl. So we basically can color match. We can completely customize each individual wheel for each customer. It's not a matter of someone saying like, oh, hey, I want, model 4, and we go pull it off the shelf, put it in a box and ship it out. That's what makes the business so hard and complex to run. But that's why we love the business, because it's just truly, we're making products that we want to ride personally. And I think that's why it's working so well.
Yeah. I now it makes sense. When you were walking through the office there earlier, I saw a bunch of different colors hanging on something, and I was like, man, it looks like they're printing something. So you're doing your that's your vinyl. So it makes sense to me now. Right on. That's cool.
Yeah.
And the other thing, like to go along with what you were just saying, when I was on the website, there's a bunch of different hubs to choose from, and a lot of other wheel companies. It's kind of like you can either buy hoops, or you can buy like, hey, here's our wheel set with an I9, and that's it. So I personally think that, that's nice that they do it that way. But for somebody that's been riding a while, you usually have a preference on how you want your hubs to engage, or like maybe what you're familiar with working on or whatever. And to like kind of be stuck into just the one, hub that they sell, and then otherwise having to go through a reseller, it's, in my opinion, it's kind of lame. I think that's awesome to have the ability to just make that choice, and then also just make that choice like direct with the manufacturer as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I think especially it's important when we're talking about a wheel set that's, between $1,200 and $1,500. Like, I mean, people are spending a lot of money on this stuff. And, for me, if I'm going to spend that much money on something and really invest in a product that's got a lifetime warranty, that I'm not going to have to think about in the future, I want it to be exactly what I want. I don't want to just take a black hub and a black rim and, okay, maybe I can put a sticker on it, or it's got the brand sticker on it. We can, by all means, do stuff that's understated, but the important thing is that every single wheel, if you order a wheel set, it's for you. So what do you want? We'll build it. If you want black on black on black, and great, man, we'll do it, but we'll do it better than everybody else. And we'll make sure that it's personalized for you. Someone builds it for you and ships it out. Because I think that, with that price point, it's really important. People are getting something that's premium, and obviously a really excellent and stringent, QC check and making sure things are built correctly is premium. But custom to order is also premium, and that's a big part of what we focus on here, is just making sure it's exactly what the customer wants. We send stuff out, like we use PD's tape and valve system too. So just when you get our wheels and they come out of the box, they're just like, they're ready to go, and they're exactly what you ordered. That's the story that we want every customer to feel when they're ordering wheels from us.
Yeah, and then you can actually have control over how the wheel is built as well. And the very first custom wheel set that I ever got, that was the most valuable thing that I learned from my friends that had their own. They were like, go to a good wheel builder. And, for you guys, you could send your hoops to some shop or whatever, and you don't know how that guy's going to build your wheel. And at the end of the day, if he does a crappy job, you could have it could be easier to have a failure, and then what do people think? They don't think like, hey, Joe's Bike Shops like made this wheel fail. They're like, no, NOBL made this wheel fail, so
yeah, this wheel sucks, basically, is what they're thinking, right?
And then they go tell all their friends, and and it's just I think it's cool. I think it's cool that you guys are going the extra mile and having all that done in hand. You said you're doing by hand as well.
Yeah, everything's done by hand. And I mean, you make a really, really good point about, wheel builds. And you're absolutely right that not only can a wheel just ride, the ride quality won't be as good, but it can really lead to premature failures, or if things aren't built right and tensions aren't even across the wheel, it can cause a whole host of problems, not the least of which is a failure, but like even stuff like retruing. My favorite thing is when people come up to us at places like Sea Otter, which happened countless times we were there, and they're like, oh, hey, I bought like some wheels 4 years ago, and like I haven't had them retrued, That to me is the indication that we're building a really high quality product. We don't use anything here that's low grade. Everything's Supreme. We do use some pillar products. So everything we use is premium because we're trying to make something that's better than everything else that's out there. So that's why we build everything by hand. That's why, even when stuff's going out the door, we have like a Wheel Fanatic, like a digital tester where like we can actually check the tension on each spoke, and it's measured and put into a spreadsheet before we ship wheels out the door. So we're paying attention to those details. And further to that, your comment about the hubs is it's nice for colors and that sort of thing in terms of aesthetics to have the other options. But I'm sure you've ridden a number of different hubs now in your time riding bikes. And so you can attest to the fact that riding a Chris King hub is going to feel way, way different than a DT350 versus an Onyx Vesper, as an example. And we want to be able to offer customers everything. Some people, I want the loudest hub. They want an i9 Hydra. Yeah. They want people to hear them. That was me a couple of years ago. Other people want silence, and that's what the Onyx Vesper gives you, right? So it just really gives you options for everyone.
Yeah. I'm trying to wheel build with the Onyx right now. I haven't ridden those yet, so I'm really curious to see like how I feel about them. I've pretty much been mostly on Project 321 hubs for the last 10 years, but here and there it'd be like an i9 that slips in, or like a bike that I bought came with it or something like that. And overall, I think initially I really liked the loud, kind of like what you were saying. But man, doing social, oh God, it's like so divisive to like everybody on the internet on how loud your hubs are. It's like you just get so many comments like, oh my God, those hubs are so loud. And then like some of those are like they're stoked about it, and some of them they're like pissed about it. And like I found that going a little quieter is a little better. Plus then you can like pick up more of like the trail noise and stuff like that. Because man, those i9s, when you don't service them regularly, those things, they're like, there's a swarm of bees following me right now.
Yeah. And like we get crazy requests, man. Like for those Hydras, I would say like 2-3 times a week, and Chris King's too, but mostly Hydras. We get like customer requests, like open up the free hub, take out every ounce of oil that's in there. Or they don't want any grease in the free hub at all. I think one guy even was like, oh, put some rubbing alcohol in there. Like I want it as loud as possible.
Oh Lord.
So yeah, it's funny. It's like, it's super divisive. Like, I think you're right. You could ask if you ask 10 people on the trail, loud hub or quiet hub, no one would have a medium opinion. Like everyone would either be like loud 100% or quiet 100%. And the Onyx hubs, I actually didn't think I would like the silence at first, but I got a chance to ride them last year. And two things I noticed right away that I felt a little bit, because they were so new to me, it felt a little bit, I don't want to use the word jarring, but it just felt like, oh, wow, it really was noticeable, more so than I would have thought. The engagement obviously on those Onyx hubs is instantaneous, but it's more of a gradual, it's not a sudden force. It kind of eases into the engagement, I would say. And also the silence, of course. And once you get used to that instant engagement, I know there's all sorts of arguments to be made about whether or not the suspension kinematics work better or worse. Once you get used to that engagement, though, it's really hard to move back to something that's got a fair bit of lower engagement, especially if you're the type of rider that's riding, slow speed, tech, steep stuff, or you need to kick drop off stuff. When you're used to kind of getting that right away, it's tough to go back. And then with the silence too, I thought I would hate it, but man, as long as your bike's quiet and you maintain your bike and it's not jangling everywhere, ripping through the trails, whisper silent, man, is like, it's something to behold as long as you're not in grizzly country.
Right. Yeah, no, it's definitely, it's interesting. I've been riding the higher engagement hubs, for a long time. And I can tell you that's one of the very first things I noticed when I get on a demo bike is like how much engagement's on the hub, because you just notice it like instantly when you're trying to ratchet through some tech or whatever, and that engagement isn't there. It's just like it's almost like debilitating in the ride. Like it's so irritating.
Yeah, for sure.
One of my buddies just recently, he had i9 wheels, and he wanted to get a new bike, and he was going to buy the frame, but frame costs, let's just say $4,500, and it just so happened to be with all these sales that were going on, he could get the lowest end model just for the same price, right? Maybe it was like a couple $100 more or something like that. But either way, it was like, oh, I'll just get this, and then I'll start swapping my parts out, but I'll have a whole bike, and whenever I decided to sell that, I can throw all that old crap back on there, And
for sure.
So it came with, of course, the lowest end wheels, and he was like, oh my God, I can't get rid of these wheels fast enough. Like it was just it was interesting hearing him talk about how bad it was, like messing up his riding. And he's a really good rider, so it was just really interesting to hear that for sure. So so when you guys first started, it was like just mountain biking, or did NOBL start with a couple of wheels? You said wide, so I'm assuming it was just a mountain bike wheel set.
Yeah, so started with mountain bike for sure. I think on balance, some of that catalog is no longer around. We don't sell all of it anymore, obviously, but we do still sell 3 rims that were really, really popular from when we first started out. We continually refine all the layups, but we still have a TR33, which is originally kind of an all mountain wheel set, I guess you would say. A TR36, which was like more of a wider version of the 33, and then we had a TR38, which is the more gravity focused rim. And
is that number the internal or the external?
That's the external width.
Okay.
That's the external width.
Just so I can like kind of make sense of what we're talking about then. So the 33 is probably like a 28 internal or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. So 33 is 27 internal, the 36 is 30 internal, and the TR38 is 31 internal. And it's been really excellent to see, even though these are the more conventional. If you look at our rims now, our sine wave series, you probably saw them at the show. They kind of have that kind of bumpy sine wave design on the rim profile itself. That's our newer series of rims. That's the TR32, 35, 37, and 41. Again, that's the external. But it's been really amazing to see how these older rims with the more conventional rim profile shape have aged over the years. The 33 in particular has started to become a go-to for adventure riders. We started drilling it out in 24 hole, 28 hole, because people that are bike packing, really long distance touring riders that like want to save weight, but they also don't want to have like a paper thin, like a road or gravel wheel if they're going to be way out in the backcountry with, 40, 50 pounds on their bike. It's been crazy to see how many of those 33s have transitioned into that type of wheel. We still get people occasionally ordering them for mountain bike use, but it's been nice to see that the product kind of age in that way and kind of find a whole new use case. And then for the 38s, they've kind of remained our main gravity rim. We always go through and redo the layups year over year, and just based on the real world testing that we see, if we feel like there's improvements that need to be made, we're always improving even the oldest series of rims. But the 38s are again something that I run on my Forbidden Dreadnought, and we sell a ton of those to people riding DH and enduro riders. They're kind of our most our burliest gravity rim. But that's how we started out. Recently, just this past year, 2 years ago, we launched like a road gravel rim. We do it in both a hookless and a clincher. And we do it in 2 depths now. So we do it in a 35 mil depth and a 45 mil depth. And like everything else that we do, the idea there is that it's fully custom. So if someone wants a 35 mil front, so it feels a bit more compliant, a little more comfortable with the shallow rim up front, and then a 45 out back where it's going to be stiffer and obviously a little more responsive, then we can do a 35-45 mixer. So it gives us an opportunity to not only service mountain bike riders, but if there are people that are looking for gravel wheels, road wheels, we have a really exceptional all-around product that will work for a lot of riders.
Right on, man. So like basically you'll be able to cover, all the different bikes that somebody's going to be riding.
Yeah, I mean, that's the plan. I think that, I'm sure some guys that ride road bikes, and my friends that are road bikers they do tend to be quite particular in terms of widths and depths of their rims. So I don't know if every single road rider out there would be the most happy with what we offer, but given the amount, like looking around the industry and seeing what we thought was the best all-round road gravel rim, that's what we've constructed. It's basically 2 different depths of what we would consider to be the ideal width of that rim and ideal ride quality.
Yeah, it's really hard for me to justify a road bike nowadays with how good gravel bikes are, and
yeah,
people that listen to my show a lot, they probably heard me rant about this a bunch, but I don't know, man. I just like the idea of the gravel bike and like how much more versatile it is. Yeah. So you can still put like it's surprising, even with the knobby wheels on your gravel bike. It's not at least I'm no Lance Armstrong, right? So it's not like I put on knobby wheels and all of a sudden I'm riding 2 miles an hour slower. It's
for sure
pretty much the exact same speed. Like you might notice a little bit of drag, but for the most part, I don't know. I'm also a guy that wears baggy clothes when I'm riding gravel as well. So I'm not like all kitted out and aerodynamic because it just doesn't work with a beer belly.
Yeah, I feel your pain there. I tend to agree with you. Like I think those new gravel bikes are so capable. I only got into riding gravel like maybe 2 years ago. I picked up a Salsa Warbird, I think it is. And like, man, I'm actually really surprised by how much I liked it. I always looked at those and I was like, okay, like maybe use it to like ride to the brewery or like whatever you're going to do. But I got it and I started riding with my buddies that would do these gravel rides. And suddenly we're out there doing, like 70, 80K rides, in the area that we're in, there's like mountains and lakes. And like, it's just such a great exploration tool. That's what like got me so stoked on it is like, you can put on some beefy tires and like be relatively sure that you're going to be good to go on your bike, even though you might have to ride a bit slower. And then you can ride single track. You can like get to places where even dirt bikes can't get. Throw the bike on your back. It's so light. So that's what really excites me about gravel biking. I thought I would hate it. I was like, oh man, like I don't want to, there's mountains there. What am I doing here? Like, I love it.
I like the fact that you can just walk out your door with it, like I don't have to drive anywhere to do my road gravel ride. I can just open up my garage, pedal out and get to something that way, where if I'm mountain biking, it's at least 30 minutes for me. I'm not as fortunate as probably the area you're in. You're like, yeah, it's like 5 minutes, so that portion of it I really like. And honestly, it's a different kind of workout that I think really gives you a good cross training for mountain biking. So like you build this stamina or endurance is what I would say, is like you're being able to hold a high wattage for a long period of time. And then that really transfers well over into mountain biking, because then in mountain biking, you get all these like little breaks. You know what I mean? You might be at, let's just say, 300 watts or 350 watts, but it's like this short little spurt. And then boom, you're back to like 180 and like chilling, or you're not pedaling at all because you're going downhill. And whenever you've trained to like keep your muscles at this like higher engagement level for long periods of time, then when you get out on the mountain bike, it just really helps a lot.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know what I don't know what the word for that is, but like it's there's something like I feel like with mountain biking it's a lot more like interval, like you're kind of spiking your heart rate, I feel like more so, whereas I found with gravel I by no means am I like, I don't have like all the data for it, but I found that my heart rate is just more I would say like more, it's constant, like it's definitely not quite as up and down. So it sounds like are you, when you're out mountain biking, like do you have like a watt, like the equipment to measure wattage, and like are you looking at that data every time?
So let me tell you, I would 100% 6 months ago make fun of anybody that said anything about watts.
I feel like I'm in a confessional right now. Like you're giving me you got to get this off your chest.
Oh my God, dude. So this winter, I don't know how it was for you guys, but here in Northern California, we just got dumped on like no tomorrow. And normally I ride, like, my Strava average says 6 days a week. So like I ride a lot, you know what I mean? Wow. And typically when it's raining in Northern California, it'll be like, oh, a day off here. And so maybe in the winter, I'm like riding 4 days a week because it's like it rained a little bit, or it was only sprinkling, so I could get away with it, you know. And this year it just rained so much that I had to do something else, and finally broke down and was like, all right, I'm gonna do this trainer thing. So I started doing Zwift, which was another thing I would have totally made fun of people for, because it's like, why do you want to ride a bike inside when you can go outside? But here, you know, this is like, I don't know, maybe my privilege of living in Northern California where we can ride most of the year. And next thing you know, I'm doing this Zwift thing, and now, because you're watching the watts, you really start like questioning, like, well, how much am I pushing on like that big climb, you know? So just recently I got here's a sneak preview for people. I'm doing a video on an like gravel bike versus an analog bike. And I wanted to, like, my idea is, you know, everybody's always like, hey, an e-bike is like the same workout, except for you just go further. And I personally don't believe that every time I hear it. So I went out, and because of like doing this Zwift thing, I'm like, I want to see, like, maybe people are just looking at how many calories they burned or something like that.
Sure.
And I feel like I've seen it with friends of mine that have gone like mostly even on mountain bike. Like when they ride the analog bike, they're not like dropping me like they used to. You know, now maybe I'm dropping them. And so my like hypothesis was that you're not like, you may be like burning the same amount of calories, but you're not working as hard, you know, and because of that, you're getting weaker. And so I ended up buying a set of the pedals that have the watt meters in it from Garmin. And it's really changed my riding, like in a way that I didn't think it was going to, because especially on the gravel bike, like when I would get on the gravel bike, I would just judge my, like, how hard I was pushing by how fast I was going. Right. But you don't know necessarily, like, hey, like when you have a tailwind that's light, you don't really know that it's there. You're just like, man, I'm freaking killing it today, you know? And
yeah, for sure.
You're like, so you're thinking, oh man, I must be hammering because I'm at 21 miles an hour. And normally I'm at 19 or something like that. And with that power meter, it is just, you look down, you know exactly how much effort you're putting in. And it's definitely changed because my gravel road rides were always kind of like my off day, almost like recovery type rides. And like mountain biking is like really like works the shit out of you. So like those road rides would be a little more chill. And now that I've been using that power meter, it's crazy to me how much more effort I'm putting into my road rides. And it's like really making a huge difference. So I'm in the process of building new bikes this year and like selling the stuff that I have. And I've been buying power meters for the new one, just because it's like, man, I just want to know now all the time.
Man, so what you're basically saying is, you're saying Zwift is the gateway drug into,
oh my God,
into power. You're sounding like a road rider, man. Like,
I know, right? Yeah. And I only condone Zwift for the training programs.
Yeah.
Because
I mean,
some people get on there and just ride rides. I can't. I have only done that once in like the 4, 5, 6 months now that I've had a membership. But the training programs on there are just insane. Like I have never been so worked on a bike than those like 1 hour sessions that I've had on there.
Wow.
It's insane. Yeah. Totally can't speak highly enough about it. But I mean, yeah, it's just because it's based off of your FTP. So it's like your personal max, let's just call it, right? So you'll be like doing like 80% of your max and then 50% or whatever, or they'll have you at 125% of your max. And so it's not like going to a spin class and the instructor's like, turn it up a notch. And you're like, yeah, I feel like it's hard. You know what I mean? Like it's legitimately like, no, we're trying to break you right now. And the screen is like an asshole. It's like, you should be feeling good right now. And you're dying. And, you're like, fuck you, Swift.
Oh man. This sounds terrible. I can't wait to try it.
Oh yeah, it's amazing. But yeah, man, I did a 6-week program whenever I first started when the rain was really bad. And when I finished that program, went out and I like just smashed all my PRs on climbs. Like it was insane how much difference. And that was like I was only riding 1 hour like every day for like 5 days, you know what I mean? And then I would still go out like maybe on my mountain bike on the weekends because the weather would allow, or 1 day a week or something like that. And it was really like dramatic how much of a difference that it made. But I mean, I guess at the end of the day, it's probably like just actually doing training specifically is probably like more targeted than just when you go out and just ride. Like it's not like I'm out there just like PR pacing at every ride I do. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't know. Like if we break it down though, like let's think about what we're talking about here, because what you're talking about is you get this application where you suddenly you're able to measure these elements that you're riding that you've never been able to see before. And then not only that, you're seeing yourself improve. Like you're seeing that improvement, you're seeing that progression, right? And like, isn't that what we all love about mountain biking? Like the thing that I love the absolute most about mountain biking is it meets you where you are. You don't have to go in over your head. Like if you try to do it every day, you're going to ride that trail better and better. Okay, now I'm going to try that, 6-inch drop. Oh, now I'm going to try the 1 foot drop. And now I'm up to the 5 foot drop, or, whatever it is. Same thing as guitar, right, man? You play guitar all the time. You see the progression. That's what brings us so much joy in these things, is like that measured response that you can see. And it sounds like this is exactly the same thing. And like, honestly, I was joking about you sound like a road rider, but like, dude, I want to try this now. Like because I know I'm the same way. Like I'm going to be like, oh, wait a minute. I had more watts yesterday. Like, and then you know what you do? You wonder about your nutrition. You're like, oh, hold on. What did I eat last night? And suddenly we're both going to have spreadsheets about our diets. Like one of our guys, Russell here, who's like an avid racer, he's got a spread, like when he's working towards race season, he's got a coach, and like, there's a spreadsheet with like all of his meals, all of his workouts, his sleep scores. Like it's just this like matrix of information. I think once you start buying into it and seeing the difference those changes can make, it's hard to ignore after that. Right.
Yeah. It truly is. It's amazing, and like I said, if you try it, definitely go on there. You do an FTP test whenever you first start, and then, go to the training plans. Don't even mess around with like the regular riding. And what it does is like, if you have, obviously you need a trainer that adjusts automatically for you. And what that does then is it's like the trainer makes you do what it's asking you. So it's not like, like, oh, this hill sucks, I can change gears. Cause if you start pedaling slower, it's going to get harder. Like, so it's like forcing you to keep the wattage that it's asking you for. And those training programs, man, just really can't speak highly enough about them. So anyways, like back to your wheels, would you say that NOBL is more of like an overall kind of stiff wheel, or like more compliant, or do you guys just kind of have a little bit of all of the above?
So I think the first thing I would say is that like those are terms that I think everyone likes to toss out when we're talking about wheels, and I think there's a general sense of what each term means.
Mm-hmm.
There was a time, like I think when carbon was first, became kind of a popular wheel building material. There was a time where carbon wheels were just extremely stiff. They were overly stiff, and maybe they were a lot lighter, but like rider feedback was like they're just really hard to ride, and that can lead to like hand fatigue, and obviously just doesn't feel very pleasant to ride if it's overly stiff. It might be more precise. You might be able to hold a straight line through the chunk better or whatever it is. So I think our goal here specifically with the sine wave rims, I mean, all of our rims I think ride really well, but with the sine wave series that we have now, that's the why we have that sine wave design in there. The idea is with that shape, we're able to keep the sidewalls nice and shallow. And if you have shallow sidewalls, that means you're going to have a lot of compliance up and down. So I think the key with any wheel is you want them to be stiff in the right places, but also have quite a bit of compliance and give in the right places. Up and down, like you'd be blown away if you saw like a slow motion video of you riding a wheel through some chunky stuff or through a corner, and you could zoom in on the wheel flex, like you would be blown away by how much your wheel is flexing. And that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. That's what's giving that carbon wheel the elasticity that feels so good to push out of corners and hold tough lines and that sort of thing, where you don't want it to feel noodly as side to side. So if you're turning or trying to make a change in the direction of the bike or something like that, you want it to be stiff in those directions. So with the newest rims we have, I think we really feel like we've kind of hit we've really hit I think the sweet spot in what the ride, the ride quality is good. It feels comfortable, but at the same time it's plenty stiff enough where you get the benefits from carbon in that respect as well. So really, I would say I haven't ridden every other carbon rim out there. I would say they're probably a fair bit more compliant than most laterally. Vertically, my mistake. Up and down, I would say they ride a fair bit more comfortably than some of the other carbon wheels that I've tried. But again, it's also about rider preference. Some folks will really like a super stiff wheel. I think that for most riders, ours are going to feel right at home. They're going to feel very good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think for me, I've always tended to go the super stiff route just because I'm a big guy. So like what might not be like what might be overly stiff for 160-pound dude is not the same feeling for me.
For sure.
But I've definitely noticed over the years that, and these words, like you said, they're so hard to like actually like translate from like what I say is compliant compared to what you say, you know what I mean? But like I've definitely noticed that, having a little bit more of a compliant rim, it doesn't beat you up as much. And that I think is worth something just as much as like how it turns, than because over time fatigue is worse than that little bit of flex. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's interesting to try different wheels. I think for me, I know there's a lot of like religious banter on carbon versus aluminum. And for me as a big guy, it's like hands down always carbon. It's one of those other things that I notice on a demo bike is instantly it would be like, oh, these are aluminum. Just because I can feel that like flex so much more. And it's weird. I'm not a guy that normally is super observant on small changes, but like the wheel stuff is really what really stands out to me. Like I've had carbon handlebars and different brands and aluminum ones, and for the most part I can't tell a difference. It's like it steers the bike.
Oh,
right?
really? Okay.
You know what I mean? And maybe if I like actually took the time to like do a run with this one and do a run with that one and like back to back, like this shit has to slap me in the face. Is what I'm that kind of guy, right? And
for sure.
But with wheels, it's like instantly like even whenever I started riding a 29er versus a 27.5 wheel, like the first ride, like they were both carbon wheels, like they're both very well built wheels, but that 29er, I just felt that flex like immediately, where it took my brain a little bit to get used to it, until I was like, oh, okay, this is normal. But just because of that wheel being a little bit bigger, it's not going to be as rigid, you know?
For sure. Yeah.
But yeah, definitely interesting. So I noticed on your site that you guys have a lifetime warranty on your newer wheel sets, but your older wheel sets, you had a 5-year warranty. What was the change that you guys made where you were like, okay, we can be like lifetime now?
Yeah, so the first thing I'd mention is that we do offer lifetime on the older rims as well. It just brings the price in alignment with the newer rims. So I can't remember, depending on the rim, there's going to be a difference in cost between our Legacy series and our Sine Wave series. But if people want the lifetime warranty with the 33, 36, or 38, 100%, it's just that extra $50 to bring it up to the same price. So,
cool.
You know, the
That's
main
awesome.
reason for the change, yeah.
I didn't realize that. I apologize if I misled anybody on that. So
no, that's okay. In fact, you know, you mentioning that means I should probably talk to our web team and figure out a way to make that more prevalent online. Obviously, a lot of people, you know, I think, you know, in terms of the calculation of like lifetime warranty versus not lifetime, that was really just a function of the industry changing. You know, when those Legacy rims were initially released, lifetime warranty just wasn't a thing. Like, it wasn't a popular thing. And obviously, some of the larger companies started offering it, and when that happens in pretty short order, smaller companies like us have to just keep up. And we've always stood behind our products. I think we make exceptional products, and all of us here are proud to stand behind the work that we do every day. So really, you know, moving to a lifetime warranty was a no-brainer for us. It was just a matter of how do we price these rims so that there is the lifetime warranty built into the product, which is the same with literally any product you have that's a lifetime warranty. There's always consideration of how much is this warranty going to cost us to potentially have to honor down the road.
Man. I mean, at the end of the day, these are businesses and it's math. So it's like, hey, we offer this warranty and we think we're going to see 2% of these get returned over time. So let's cover that. And then the the guy buying the wheels is like, oh, this is sweet. They just gave it away.
yeah, exactly. And if you look at the cost, like between the Legacy and the Sine Wave stuff, we're talking about like $50. Like, it's not like you pay $7,000 for a lifetime warranty. So really, it just came down to the fact that the industry was changing. People were moving toward lifetime warranty. We were able to recognize that obviously customers, they're investing this amount of money in a wheel set. I mean, I love it when people come up to me and say like, oh, I bought these wheels, like I said, with the truing. I just haven't thought about them. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I've had them for 3 years. I just have not thought about them. I've never had any issues. And so when you're buying a wheel set for this price point and it's custom, you never have to worry about it. And if you have an issue with it, then we'll just help you fix it. You know what I mean? And so that was really important to us. But that's the main reason for the different warranties, because they just kind of were released at different times. But you can get lifetime on the Legacy stuff. It's just the same price.
And then the lifetime warranty, is that like I run into my garage, or is it like I break it riding? That's cool. But if I like melt it on my muffler, then I'm getting crash replacement or something like that. How?
Yeah, I mean, you can imagine the types of stories we get from people for sure. You know, I think the way that it's worded on the website or whatever is like, if you break your wheel riding your bike, with the rims replaced at no charge to you. You know, I think that we've had people that have had, you know, accidents, you know, they back over it with their truck or whatever, that sort of thing. That actually happens maybe a little bit less than you'd expect. In those cases, people are usually really honest, and they're like, hey man, like, sorry, but like my exhaust melted it or whatever. And when that happens, like, I don't know, we usually go above and beyond. Like, I mean, it happens so infrequently. Usually people are just like, usually their bike is also broken, so they're like really sad, and so we want to I want to keep people on the wheels, right? So we'll try to work something. Technically speaking, it would be a crash replacement, but you know, I mean, if something has,
but at the end of the day, even offering that, offering that, I mean, that's still a 50% wheel at that point. So like, that's not really. That's a lot better deal than no deal at all, you know.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And I'm curious what you know, obviously it sounds like you've ridden a few carbon wheels. I'm curious what your experience has been like with carbon over the years, and I'm not sure if you're comfortable talking about what wheels you've ridden versus what you haven't, but in terms of compliance, stiffness, and all that ride quality stuff, like, wheel to wheel, are you noticing a huge change like between brand X and brand Y and that sort of thing? Or are these just buzzwords you feel like people are throwing around?
I think some of it's buzzwords, but I definitely noticed a difference. I'll say this. I think that in the last 5 years, my riding skill, like how hard I'm pushing, has dramatically changed. And I think when I first started, like my channel, for example, I was your typical weekend warrior type of rider. And I definitely was not like pushing the boundaries of like my hardware, you know?
Sure.
And now I can say that, I mean, I've broke pretty much every wheel set that I've had, you know, where, so I don't feel like it's like, hey, quality is not as good. I feel like it's like, okay, Rob, you're a 250-pound guy and you're smashing shit at, you know, at the higher end of things. I'm no pro by any means, but I definitely, like, if I look at my times, I'm in that like top 15% at least. You know what I mean? So and that's relative. You know what I mean? Like if I was to go look at my times the day that we're doing an enduro race in our local neighborhood, definitely not in the top 15%. You know?
yeah.
But like on a regular ride to go out and ride somewhere, it's like typically, yeah, that's where I'm following, you know? And I think that because of riding so much harder now, that I am starting to see failures and stuff. So, you know, whenever I first started riding carbon, I had never really broken a aluminum wheel, you know what I mean? So when I started riding carbon though, I definitely noticed, for me as a bigger guy, like how much more precise my corners felt. Like everything just felt so rigid and like locked in that I didn't realize that it was the wheels doing that. You know what I mean? And now I've definitely ridden a bunch of different wheels. I've been mostly on NV wheels for the last few years, but like I said to start, like I've broke every set of wheels that I've had at least once. You know what I mean? And the only ones that I haven't, so I've had NV, I've had some Stans wheels, and I had a set of night wheels, and then whatever I've, you know, demoed on a bunch of different demo bikes. And I will say that there's definitely a difference in compliance in some of the different brands. Like I'd say when I first got on, like when Crank Brothers came out with those synthesis that was supposed to be their like super compliant ones, I thought that was a ride that I thought I was on an aluminum wheel when I first started it.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I said something to my buddy whose bike I was borrowing. I was like, oh, these are aluminum wheels. And he's like, nah, this is that new. So like, there's definitely a noticeable difference in like some compliance between one and another. But I don't think it's like as dramatic as some people would like to like make it seem. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like when I've ridden Envy's AM like all mountain wheel versus the like more enduro wheel. It wasn't like I got on the trail and was like, oh my God, this one's like so cheap. It's like Flexi, you know what I mean? Like, no wonder it's cheaper, you know? It's like, yeah, I guess there's a difference, you know, definitely it's different, like, you know, looking at the build of it and stuff. So, I mean, a logical mind would be like, this one's more beefy. It should be stronger. But I think that there's so many good wheel sets out there now. I think that what it really comes down to is, for me, is like a company that allows you to get what you want. So like having the flexibility like you guys do with your different hubs and stuff like that. And then it's the customer service. And that's the thing where there's certain companies where that customer service end of it, or that like they really care about their riders end of it, like is what makes me go to that company versus somebody else. Like a good example is this helmet over here. Is Cali is not the biggest, you know, baddest, like sickest designed helmet, you know what I mean? There's some other ones that just look so much cleaner, but Brad, the founder of Cali, like I've never heard somebody so passionate about like people's safety as him.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, dude,
Mm-hmm.
that's the kind of thing that makes me want to buy your product. You know, like maybe the Fox full, you know, Pro frame looks a little cooler, but it's like, nah, dude, these guys like really, really
Mm-hmm.
like really care. And that's the stuff that means more to me, at least me personally. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%, man. That really resonates with me, and that's something we've always taken a ton of pride in here. It's just taking care of our people. We just love talking to people about bikes. Like at the end of the day, I think if you have a company where everyone is passionate about bikes and like loves riding bikes, you know, it's definitely not a surprise that we're going to enjoy talking to people and helping them, you know, build products that are specifically for them. So that makes sense to me. It's definitely something that we try to do every single day here for sure.
Yeah, I've definitely feel like, and maybe it's more just because I've been riding so long at this point. Like I really have like opinions on all of my components, like strong
Mm-hmm.
opinions of what I want, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
back whenever I was more of just like a weekend rider, I didn't really know the difference between a low engagement hub and a high engagement hub, or like,
Yeah.
you know, what kind of wheel that I was riding, or even down to my bike, like whether I like the Fox suspension versus a Rock Shocks or something, you know. And
Sure.
nowadays it's like I'm I have a lot of opinions. So to go buy a bike, for example, that's just pre-built with everything on it, all it is a big list of shit that I'm like, not going to use that. I'm not going to use that. I'm not going to use that. So
Yeah.
it's like either you're mentally like, oh, I'm going to take all this stuff off, and whenever I sell it, it'll be there and brand new to put back on, or you're just going
Yeah.
to build it the way that you want. And I think a company like yours, or some of these like smaller brands, bike brands like Commensol or Fazari, where you can choose literally like your components and things of that nature, where you can minimize that, like what you have to replace stuff. I think that's the way to go, in my opinion, because then you have something that you're it's really what you wanted, you know. And
Yeah.
so like you guys, if I build this wheel set, you know, X wheel set with you guys, it's you're gonna know that, hey, if I switch frames, I'm gonna put this wheel set on that frame too, because it's
Yeah.
like it's just gonna go
Exactly.
along with it, you know.
Yeah, and you know, I think the cool thing about it is it gives us an opportunity to talk to every type of customer. You know, we talk to people like you who are like, "Hey, man, I know what I like. I want this Onyx hub. I want this rim. Maybe we can give you a bit of advice on spoke type or something like that. Like if you're not quite
Mm-hmm.
sure, but that customer knows what they want. We build it up. It's good to go. But it's also really amazing to talk to people that reach out and they're like, "Hey, it's my first mountain bike, but I got some cash to invest in this thing. You know, for whatever reason, they want something premium out of the, you know, off the hop." And they don't have the information. And it's such an awesome opportunity for us to be able to share some of that info with them. Oh, what is engagement? I don't know what engagement is. Okay, well, let's explain it to this person. You know, we've invested quite a bit in some dealer networking now, and we have distributors internationally as well. But traditionally, the business was D2C. We were direct to customer for a lot of years. And while we're focusing on dealers a little bit more, a little bit more so now, what that allowed us to do is get really, really good at talking to customers about wheel set requests, warranties. You know, I think that we pride ourselves in it a lot. If people email us, if they call us, you don't get an email back like in 2 days. Like if you email us for a wheel set recommendation tonight, like someone will probably get back to you in the next, like, I would say 3 to 5 hours most of the time. That's built into our service level agreement. I can't remember exactly what it says online,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it's something like within 5 hours, we try to get back to everyone. Obviously there's some times where the volume's a little bit higher, but what I like about what you mentioned there is we can talk to people that know what they want, but we can also talk to people that might not know what they want and don't quite understand the technology yet.
Mm-hmm.
Because then they're going to understand what the difference is in these components, why it makes a difference, and then potentially start to form a preference toward that as they move forward. And that's going to give you a stronger customer because now you've talked to someone, you've built up a lot of trust. You know, you've helped them in their purchase, helped them in their education of biking products. And you know, next time they go to buy a wheel set, they're going to remember that every single time. And we're able to talk to different types of customers, and that's what I like about it.
Yeah, I mean, people don't. I mean, a lot of people don't know, like, hey, do I want a 24 hole or do I want a 32? You know, like, do you guys make both? Or so something like that? How would you explain the difference in quality or ride between those two different like spoke counts?
Yeah, so I think that for all of our sine wave rims, like all of our mountain sine wave rims, at least they're 32 hole only. Sorry, minus we do like an XC trail rim, which is the TR32 and TR35, and those are 28 hole only. So, you know, there's a
28.
lot of
That's what I
factors.
meant to say. Thank you.
28 hole only, yeah.
Yeah.
The road and gravel stuff we do in 24 hole as well. But for the mountain stuff, we're primarily 28 hole and 32 hole. And the 28 hole traditionally is lighter, obviously, because there's less spokes. So we do that in the TR32 and TR35. Whereas the 37 and 41 we do in 32 hole. So traditionally speaking, the 32 hole is going to be a little bit heavier for a stronger, more durable wheel, stiffer wheel. Whereas the 28 hole is going to be a little more lightweight. But, you know, all that being said, there's all these other weird things to consider too, like, you know, that people don't tend to think about. Well, if you have 32 holes, that means you have more holes in the hub flange. That means you have more holes in the rim. So all these little things add up. I think what we've found on balance for us is that 28 hole really, really works well for like XC light trail riding, and 32 hole is what we go to for, you know, all mountain enduro DH kind of gravity style riding.
Yeah, I've talked to another wheel company. I don't remember which one it was, but they were saying that they thought the 28 hole was a stronger wheel because it had less holes in the wheel. Like,
yeah,
but then
sure.
I've talked to other wheel companies and they're like, no, 32 for sure. So it's like, it seems like that's like it's up for debate, you know?
Yeah, it's a contentious subject, and there's a million different ways you can kind of slice it too, right? Because not only are you talking about how many, you know, spokes there are, you're talking about what's the gauge of the spokes. Are they a bladed spoke? We build with a bladed spoke. We build with kind of a nice all-round spoke, and we build with a Supreme race spoke, which is kind of our thickest, stiffest gauge spoke that we use. So if we're talking about a 28 hole race spokes, you know, that's going to be stiffer in some cases than a 32 hole bladed spoke, right? So what we try to do here is make recommendations to people based on what that's why I hate the model of what wheel do you want? We have 5. You know, we don't like, how do you want this to feel? We can do it. You know what I mean? That's we just like to say yes to things. And we found that between 28 hole and 32 hole and 24 on the road gravel stuff, we can build an ideal wheel for almost every single rider.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. It's just, I mean, like I said, I have some opinion, but I don't have all the opinion on that stuff. And it's good to be able to have a builder, or in this case, like you're dealing direct with the manufacturer, like, hey, figure that part out for me. I want it to feel like this, you know, like that's awesome. So we were talking about the warranty earlier, and how does it work? Like, if I foobarred my wheel, should I go to a bike shop, or should I just call you guys and then I'm supposed to ship it to you? Or how does that work out?
Yeah, so I mean, it can really work however you want it to work, I would say. Obviously, some people have purchased our wheels through a shop, which is great. In some cases, they'll have purchased it directly through us. So we have those 2 different avenues that people could purchase wheels through us. If you buy it from us or through a shop, you can fulfill the warranty pretty much however you want to. Some people love to go to their bike shop. They don't want to touch anything. They just bring the wheel back to the shop. That bike shop's a dealer. They facilitate the warranty. And, you know, typically what will end up happening is we'll end up sending a replacement rim to the shop. The shop will do the rest and hand it back to the customer. What's more common is that we'll deal, and what I actually really like doing is dealing directly with customers, just because, again, we've just have so much experience in doing it. And I think we've gotten really good at talking about the technical aspects of what we do with people. So if you say you had a NOBL rim, you had an issue, you had a crash, or you cased something really badly and you broke your rear rim, NOBLWheels.com, you go to support, there's like a warranties thing, like kind of one of the first little tabs there. There's just a form there. All you have to do is just name, email address. I think you have to put your order number in or something like that. If you don't have your order number, we can look up your name. Like, it's not set in stone, but for the most part, it's fairly minimal information. We do ask that people send a picture of the serial number on the rim, which is right on the rim bed. And then once that's done, we just process the warranty. And from that point, we can handle it however people would like to handle it. A lot of people are trying to get back on their bike as fast as possible, which basically means we usually dispatch a rim out to them like next day or, you know, within 48 hours kind of thing, down to the location. Once the rim arrives there, they would take it to a local builder or a local shop, or some folks like to build it up themselves if they have the skill to do that. If people want us to do the rebuild for them, we can absolutely do that too. We get them to ship the rim into us, and then we facilitate the rebuild and ship the finished wheel back out to them too.
Would you have them ship the whole like broken wheel, or just like cut the hub out and send it back, or would you be? Because I would make the assumption you're probably not going to reuse any of the spokes.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends. It's such a case-by-case scenario. In a lot of cases, if the wheel is like 2 months old or something like that, most of those spokes are probably mint and good to use again. So what we would probably do in that case is either get the customer to ship the whole wheel if they wanted to. But most of the time, say it's an older rim, someone's had it for like 2-3 years. We know we're not going to reuse the spokes. We'll just get them to chop the wheel, send us the hub or whatever, and then we'll basically do the rebuild for them and ship it back down if they want us to build it. We love to build the wheels because that's what we specialize in. We can, as you mentioned earlier, we can control the process. We know exactly the build quality that we're getting when we build it. So we love to do that, but at the same time, we totally respect that customers want to get back on their bike as soon as possible. And oftentimes that just means like, even today, like we got a warranty claim yesterday, the rims out the door today kind of thing. So it's very like we prioritize warranties above and beyond pretty much everything else. If someone's got a problem with the product, we need to fix it as soon as possible.
Do you guys use some kind of proprietary rim strip, or is it just like whatever tape somebody feels like they're into?
Yeah. We've been using, so in the shop here, we were using like a black Tesla style tape, which worked really, really well. But over the last 6 months, you'd be blown away by how much trouble people tend to have, like the average person tends to have with tubeless setups. So a lot of times people will use tire levers to install their tire, or whatever reason, they'll scrape the tape up, and then it won't seal properly. And then, obviously that's another thing that we need to walk people through and make sure that that's up and running properly. So in the interest of just like making sure it was mint and we didn't have no one would have a problem with it, regardless of what they're doing for the most part, we've moved to using PD's rim tape, or PD's rim tape system. And it's actually like a 3-layer system that we're doing. So we're doing like 1 layer over the holes of a very like an ultra thin Tessa tape, the PD's tape, which comes complete with like not only kind of a 1 rim strip, but it also has almost like a Gorilla Tape style tab that folds over. So since we moved to that system maybe 8 months ago, I think maybe we've had 1 person have an issue with sealing, which is night and day what we were dealing with before. So every finished wheel here leaves completely taped and valved.
Right on. I'll have to check that system out. I've never seen it or actually even heard of it, to tell you the truth. So it's just like a couple of different layers that you throw on there.
Yeah, so I mean, their system alone is basically the PD's tape system, which you'll probably see on Instagram. I can show you some photos later, but it's like it's a really nice looking tape. It's translucent, but it's got the PD's logo on it in chrome. And that goes all the way around. And then what they do are the 2 tabs meet at the top of the wheel is they have this like other piece of it. It looks like Gorilla Tape, but it's proprietary tape that like is perfectly fit depending on the width. And it just kind of seals up those 2 tabs there. In addition to that, though, we also do add another single layer of like ultralight Tessa tape underneath the PD's tape, just so that it's like completely sealed. Say you're going in there, like, you're using like a tire lever or something like that to get your tire on there. You bring up a bit of the PD's tape by accident, you're still going to be good to go.
Yeah. One of the guys in the comments is like, I don't use levers. I don't know how the hell you don't use levers, man. I got like little baby hands or something, man, because I'm just like, that Cushcore tool that they sell, it looks like well, we won't talk about what it looks like. Anyways, that thing is amazing. Oh my God. I love that tool because I am definitely one of those people that like highly relies on a lever to get a wheel on. But I don't know. I think it's some rims though too. Some rims are easier than others to get tires in and off of. I don't know if that comes down to like what their like bead system is or something like that, or
Yeah,
What do you
it
think?
could be the. I mean, it's a lot of times it's the depth, but really, I think what we're talking about most of the time when it comes to mountain wheels is the tire itself. To be honest, like if you try
Yeah.
to install a DH casing, ask a guy on like a TR38 versus like an EXO casing, like it's night and day, man. Like I've
Yeah.
even just struggled to like those thicker casing tires, especially the first time you put them on. Man, they can be really, really hard, especially if you're using an insert like Cushcore or Tannis or something like that. It can be like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I've thrown a few tires across the garage. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of the lever conversation, I think that's just like what our warehouse lead here, Chris, is been a really, really, like I said, solid mechanic for years and years. That guy can just put a tire on without even like touching it. Like I don't even know what he's doing, but it's like it's mounted, everything's completely straight.
Yeah.
Like I struggle with mine for 20 minutes and then the logo doesn't line up and you know
Yeah.
what I mean? I have to redo the whole thing. So I think it's just you repeat it enough that you get good at it
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah. I got a buddy that works at a shop and he'll like hold it and he's like pushing his hands around and it's like pops right on. I'm like, you're a freaking asshole, man. I don't want to talk to you anymore. Like,
What
I
is
don't
happening?
understand it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So
yeah.
I just noticed, Robert, I just noticed that I didn't even know I had access to the comments here. Holy smokes. This is
Oh,
a whole new,
yeah.
this is a
Yeah.
whole new world of comments.
Don't worry about that over there. Honestly, I enjoy people watching live and what I'll do is I'll take a look if something really grabs my attention. But for the most part, I don't want it to take away from our conversation. So, but
Sure.
yeah, stoked that you saw that. Those thicker tires are definitely make a bit more work, and the inserts add to it as well. So I know a lot of companies have maybe started to change their rim profiles because of pinch flats, or they're trying to say maybe, oh, you don't need inserts or something like that. Is there any kind of change in your newer wheels like that kind of combats the pinch flat kind of thing? Or
Yeah, I don't really know. I mean, I think if you're running the right pressure, you shouldn't really have an issue with pinch flats. Do you have, I mean, I'm not sure what your experience has been like, but I think that we don't get a lot of customers from what I've seen, and I always keep an eye on the customer service stuff. We don't hear a lot about that too much, so maybe our rim profile is set up well for that. But I think that if you're running the right pressure, I don't think that should be too much of a challenge. Is your question more about the pinch flatting or more about inserts in general?
I think you answered just fine. Don't worry about it. I don't think I had a real solid direction of where I was going with that. I was just trying to see, because I know like Envy, for example, they have a rim strip, and their like big claim on that is like, hey, you'll never get a pinch flat. Where, like you said, I never really had a pinch flat problem in the first place. But I think part of that marketing is also that they're like, hey, you don't need to have an insert. Because a lot of guys are buying inserts really just for like rim protection. And but that's not what everybody rides an insert for. Like me personally, if I'm riding an insert, it 100% has to do with the sidewall stiffness and not rim protection. Like I really don't care about the rim protection at all. Like I want that like super stiff sidewall. So, but on the other hand, that's a balancing act. So like, I don't really feel the need for my Cushcore as much if I'm running a downhill casing as I do if I'm running like an EXO Plus, right? But it's like, you could have that same feeling in a little bit of a lighter tire. So, it's really like kind of like what kind of like stew do you want to brew up in the cauldron? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and how complicated do you want to make your setup, right? Like I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. Obviously, being in the wheel business, I have an opinion about inserts, and it might not be the right one, but everyone that kind of works in this business, because they're part of the system, it's something that everyone probably has a thought or two about. I think you hit the nail on the head. There's an awesome use case for inserts, in my opinion, and the use case for me is sidewall stiffness and increased damping. For sure, I've run Cushcore, I've run Tannis. And there's no doubt in my mind, railing through corners, pushing through corners at slightly lower tire pressures, you're going to have definitely a stiffer sidewall for sure. even if even versus, I would say, something like DH or a double down casing. I could say pretty plainly that I personally don't believe that those inserts offer much rim protection, if any. Maybe they do. I know that there's a lot of advertising and marketing to suggest that they do. From what we've seen in our data and our testing, if you're going to break your wheel, it's not going to matter if there's an insert in there for the most part. I mean, I can't say that definitively, but I think most of the time, if people are trying to protect their rim, it's more about tire casing, in my opinion, and most importantly, air pressure. I think one of the biggest dangers with inserts is that a lot of guys that are my size, I'm 215 pounds, ride fairly aggressively. What are you running in your rear? Oh, I run 28 in the back. Okay, great. Oh, I put in a cush core and I'm running 21. It's like, yeah, but you can, I think it says something like on their website, like you can incrementally drop 0.5, but something like that.
Yeah.
But we see a lot of customers that they put an insert in and they run 10 less PSI because, it feels better, but you're riding on the rim, right? Which is not really the way that it's kind of meant to be designed. But for pinch flats, man, you make a great point. I think that the actual the sidewall and the tire compound and that's a huge part of it for sure.
Yeah, I seen another company too. I can't remember who it was, to not just put envy out there. There was another company that just recently they changed the width of the I don't know what you call the sides of the rim. Like where the brake pads used to hit back in the day, they changed the width.
The rim bead.
Yeah, they changed the width of that so that it's a little more blunt than it is skinny. So that way, if you do hit hard that way, that it's less at least the marketing says it's less likely to pinch flat. But
for sure,
for me, I think the reason that I don't know, I'm a bigger guy, so I've always run much higher pressures than most people. So maybe I'm overinflating my tires, but that's what I feel like I need to do in order to not roll it. And
what are you running in the back then? What would you run typically? Say it's a typical kind of trail enduro setup.
Pretty normally, I'm probably 28.
Yeah.
So if I was with cush core in my wheel, I might go, or depending on the trail, if I know it's not super chunky, I'll maybe drop down to 25. I feel like my front tire, I will always obviously go a little lower on my front just because you're not smashing that the same way. Plus, it has a
for sure.
So maybe if my rear is 28, my front's probably 25, and then if I'm dropping the rear down, then it's going to go to maybe 25 in the front to 23 or something like that. But guys that are 18 on regular wheels, I'm like, holy shit, dude, how do you do that? I just would I would feel like the wheel, the tire's just gonna rip off the rim in my corner,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. I think I usually am 28 in the back, 20, 26, 25 at the front for the most part.
Yeah. It's crazy how much a couple of PSI will make on a trail, though. It really is. Just the other day we were riding this trail at getting a little bit loose, and kind of dry, and my buddy and I both were like, man, because we drove up there as higher elevation, we're probably a little high, and neither one of us had a gauge on us, and we both kind of let some air out, and both of us at the bottom were like, oh my god, that felt so much better. It was crazy. So it's definitely something to be said for those of you out there that haven't played around with your pressures. Definitely do that. Know that, obviously the lower you get, the more option you have for messing something up, but it definitely there's a sweet spot. And I think it depends on the rider though, too. Cause, I mean, some guys like their wheels super hard. They're like, I don't even care. I run 35 PSI. And you're like, I don't know how you do that.
We got a couple of those around here for sure, man. We got a couple of those around here.
So kind of crazy, but I mean, like I said, to each their own. I think, obviously it has to do with where you ride as well. Some places that have a lot of square edge rocks, you're definitely going to be typically running a higher like PSI than somebody where that's like, yeah, we ride in the loam all day. That's just awesome, you know?
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
exactly. And I mean, especially here in the Pacific Northwest, like we get a ton of rain here. So in the winter, I'm often running lower PSI than I will be in the summer. But I'm also riding slower. Like I went out yesterday, and it's been really dry here for the last 2-3 weeks. And like I felt like I didn't know how to ride a bike, and I was like, "What's happened here?" Like I just feel like a total kook on this thing. And I realized after the fact when I looked at my Strava times, it was actually just because I was so it was dry and it was so fast. I was riding much faster than I was used to riding when it was wet a few weeks ago. So as soon as it gets wetter here, there's a lot of root clusters and really slippery rocks, and that's when it's a good time to knock it down too, because you obviously want that extra traction on those rainy days.
mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. It's definitely like it's funny because here in Northern California, we'll have let's just call it a wet season, and the trails are much better dirt and everything like that. And then come spring, it's like you feel like you forgot how to ride bike because everything gets so dry and loose. You can't brake the same, and it's just like you feel like you take a step back for a couple of weeks until your brain like re-associates with riding like that. And then come August, your friends will come from somewhere else and they just don't understand how you're riding like as fast as you are on no traction. And then you just go through this process of getting spoiled and forgetting again over the winter. So
yeah.
So what do you think, or what is the most popular wheel that you guys sell?
Yes, I'd say for sure the most popular rim we sell is the TR37. I put that rim firmly in the kind of like aggressive trail all mountain enduro category. We do have enduro racers on the EWS circuit that are riding it. So it works really, really well for a wide variety of riders. As an example, I rode that on my Forbidden Druid before. I currently have a set with bird spokes on my Transition Spur, which is like more of an XC like light trail bike. I've made the choice to bump up to a 38 or a 41, depending on the day, on my Dreadnought, which is like my bigger bike. But the TR37 works really, really well for most riders. I would say that people could, versus like an aluminum rim, it's obviously going to offer some pretty significant weight savings. But the profile works really, really well for tires from 2.3 to 2.6 inches wide. Not just enduro tires, but even just trail tires are going to work really, really well on it. And I think it's just going to perform well. Like someone, as an example, if they're a trail rider, they could go do an XC race on it. They could go out the next day and do some laps at the bike park. I wouldn't say that they're like a gravity specific or like a gravity oriented rim, but for sure it's definitely a most versatile offering.
Yeah. So when the different models of the tires, it seems like as you get into like further away from XC and closer to downhill, the internal diameter or internal width gets wider and wider. What's that reason?
Yeah, I mean, so you could have an argument about whether or not that's warranted. I think that like everything else in the industry, or like really any industry, things start getting wider and there's probably a sweet spot that you get to, and then people like push farther. I think with anything gravity related, anything where you're going at speed downhill and descending, the argument for a larger tire is going to be traction and control, right? You're going to have more surface contact with the ground, which means you're going to be able to corner more effectively, brake more effectively. That's where your bike meets the ground. So I think that's why people are trending toward wider tires. At some point, though, it becomes, counterintuitive. Like as an example, if you saw someone like trying to rip a DH track on a fat bike, like they probably wouldn't be going that fast, right? Because the tires become too big. So I think it's really about personal preference, and I also think there's something to be said about rim width that really plays into things too. As an example, if you say you have like a 2.5 inch front tire, a 2.5 inch Assegai, which a lot of people run out here in the Pacific Northwest, if you put that tire on a TR37 versus a TR41, the internal width is about 5 millimeters difference, right? So there's going to be a huge difference in the tire profile on those two rims. So you could put the exact same tire on two different rims. The TR41, which is wider, is going to have a more squared off profile versus the 37 that's going to have a rounder, more traditional tire profile. And really that's going to come down to rider preference. Some people want to have the knobs on the side, whereas some people want to have that wider profile. And I couldn't say with any confidence what's better, but I do know that they ride differently. They feel different out on the trail. So I think that if I had to guess, I would say that I don't think that in 2 years, people are going to be running 2.8 front tires. Like out here in the PNW, it's not uncommon to see 2.5 up front, 2.3 in the back, maybe 2.6 up front, 2.4 in the back, or like whatever it is. I don't think in 2 years we're going to see 2.8, 2.6. I could be wrong. I've been wrong before, but I think that we're probably going to. I feel like with bike geometry right now and with tire width, I think those are two areas that we're probably going to see things remain relatively static because I think we've hit the sweet spot as far as I'm concerned. All that being said, you know what I mean? Like maybe in a couple of years, you can call me up and be like, hey man, just bought 2.8s for my front. Like all these bikes are coming spec with them now. But I think that we've kind of hit the sweet spot there.
Right on, man. Well, I think that that's obviously something that a lot of people, struggle with. Like, what should I get? What's best for what I do? So, I mean, at the end of the day, It sounds like if they call you guys up, you guys will be able to square them away. So.
Yeah. I mean, that's the idea for us is we love talking to people about bikes. We love building wheels. I think we build a really great product. And like I said, we pick up the phone, we answer emails. Everything we do is custom. Nothing's pre-built. If folks are interested in hearing more about the wheels, we would love for them to shoot us an email, give us a call, and really happy to set up something that's custom for every customer that's going to fit exactly what they're looking for.
Right on, man. Well, hey, Chris, I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down and chat with me today. It really means a lot. And excited to maybe take a look at some of your wheels in the future and give them a ride myself. So. But
yeah, we got to get some wheels in your hands, man. You didn't scare me off with all the broken wheel stories. So I'm like, I'm ready to go. Let's do the Pepsi challenge.
All right, there you go. Well, I like I said, really appreciate talking to you. It was really fun learning a little bit about NOBL and what you guys are doing over there and what's different. So any of you out there listening, if you haven't taken a look at their website, go ahead and swing over there. It's noblewheels.com. Pretty simple. It's in the show notes. If you're on YouTube, same thing to do with the podcast. Like I said at the beginning of the show, give me a follow on Instagram or Facebook while you're over there checking out NOBL Wheels. You could do the same for them. Really appreciate all of you supporters out there on Patreon. It means a ton to me. It really, really keeps the show on the road. So thank you very much. At the end of the day, though, there's one thing to remember. It only takes a bike to be a biker. Get out and be one.